To all the crazy people on social media calling her every name under the sun because she chose to play in Indiana.
Bonner just broke her 6-month Twitter silence, and she didn't come back with a casual "Hey, I'm back" post. No, she dropped a bombshell that has the whole WNBA talking. Not only is she joining the Indiana Fever, but she's also flipping the script on the most tired narrative out there. You know, the one that Caitlin Clark and Indiana Fever fans are toxic? Yeah, that's gone now, as Bonner buried it with one tweet. This WNBA offseason had a lot of dumbass narratives. It really did, and I hope they're gone for good. I hope we spend so much less time discussing nonsense. I think we've seen it stamped out this offseason, and one of those narratives was that people wouldn't want to go to the Fever because of the Fever fan base. Now, you might be thinking, isn't it the team everyone loves to hate? Well, Bonner's not having it. She hit send on a tweet that's shaking the league to its core. And trust me, it's about more than just basketball. It goes to show you that I think, hopefully, all that stuff has been put in the rear view. And of course, Bonner is a pro. Picture this. Bonner scrolling through her phone, probably sipping on some coffee when she stumbles across the usual nonsense. Fans trashing her for signing with Indiana. The haters saying no one wants to play for the Fever.
In my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base.
And the so-called experts still clinging to the narrative like it's the last slice of pizza at a party. But instead of ignoring it, Bonner snapped. She didn't just clap back, she obliterated that weak narrative with the precision of one of her signature shot blocks. Y'all, I don't get on here often because this app is insanely too much. Sometimes I just want to say thank you. Thank you for all the love I've received so far, definitely not unnoticed. The love is real. Her tweet said, pure gold. She didn't just defend herself, she went all in for Indiana Fever fans. Bonner basically said, y'all are loud, passionate, and real. That's not toxic. That's what real fandom looks like. She didn't stop there. She called out the hypocrisy, too. How is it that when other fan bases are passionate, it's support, but when Indiana does it, it's something else? Make it make sense. She's gone online twice. One,
we had her face on a serious matter that happened in this world, and it's unacceptable, honestly.
To call out the crazy people attacking her right now because she joined the Fever. And here's why this matters. Bonner isn't just some rookie trying to make headlines. She's a champion, one of the legends of the game, and a walking bucket. When she speaks, the whole league listens. This isn't just some player venting online. This is a respected leader calling out the nonsense. She's seen it all in the WNBA, and she's not afraid to say what everyone's been thinking. Fever fans are probably starving for that, and I think seeing the validation of the players choosing their team is exciting. But here's the plot twist. Her tweet wasn't just about the fans. Bonner basically put the entire league on notice. She made it clear, Indiana isn't just a team struggling to stay relevant. With Caitlin Clark leading the charge, the Fever are building something special and Bonner's here for it. She's not just joining a team, she's joining a movement. And it's funny because if you're seeing like DeWanna Bonner, if you're seeing like Natasha Howard on social media, and Natasha Howard's posts are getting 100 times more likes than Bonner's, she's been reacting more positively than she ever has in her career right now. And guess what? The response has been overwhelming. Fans are rallying behind her. Fever supporters are louder than ever. Even players from other teams are jumping in to show love. The narrative flipped completely, be an olive branch to us, all to focus on the basketball. But I did think it was worth sharing simply because I know a lot of those new fans felt rejected and beaten down a lot, and I think this is symbolic. Now, all those haters who swore...
There are, and the larger that group becomes, of course, then the larger the small percentage of bad apples are. But if you've ever followed sports, you see people acting stupid.
No one wanted to play for Indiana are scrambling, pretending they never said a word. Meanwhile, Bonner, Caitlin Clark, and the Fever are out here plotting their next move. And spoiler alert, it's going to be legendary. You know, no argument that the Fever are a great basketball destination, that Caitlin Clark is a great basketball player. You've probably heard about the so-called Indiana Fever fan controversy, but do you really know the whole story? It all started when Alyssa Thomas, Bonner's own wife, decided to stir the pot. She claimed that Fever fans were so scary, players were avoiding the team like it was some kind of basketball wasteland. In my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base. We had to face a serious matter that happened in this world, and it's unacceptable, honestly. There's no place for it, and we've been professional throughout the whole entire thing. But I've never been called the things that I've been called on social media. But here's the plot twist. Despite all that noise, star players are literally lining up to join the Fever. DeWanna Bonner, Natasha Howard. These aren't just role players. These are certified WNBA stars. They saw the so-called toxic fan base headlines and said, yeah, sign me up. Anyway, now let's talk facts. The numbers don't lie. Fever fan engagement is through the roof. We're talking sold-out arenas, merch flying off the shelves, and social media buzzing like it's draft night every day. This fan base isn't toxic, it's electric. And let's not forget the Caitlin Clark effect. This isn't just a player making waves, she's a tsunami. Clark isn't just bringing in new fans, she's converting casuals into diehards. The same team people called irrelevant a few years ago is now the hottest ticket in town. It's like judging an entire library because one book had a torn page. Make it make sense. The Fever fan base being painted with this broad brushstroke was always just stupid. Really, there's no other word for it. Because Caitlin Clark brought more fans to the league than it's ever seen, so many of them are Fever fans. And the new fans that come in outnumber the old fans that were already there. You don't want to tell those people they're unwelcome. So what's really going on here? Is the Fever fan base as mean as a few salty players claim? Absolutely not. Every team's got a couple of bad apples, that's sports. But let's be real, those people don't define the culture. The fan base is passionate, and that passion is exactly what's fueling the Fever's rise. And a lot of fans, I think, felt unwelcome as a result of that. Because when you look at every sport and every fan base, there are going to be bad apples in every group of people. There are. And the larger that group becomes, of course, the larger the small percentage of bad apples are. But if you've ever followed sports, you see people acting stupid online or even live at games. Here's the reality. Why are star players suddenly flocking to Indiana? It's simple. They see the vision. They know what's cooking in that front office. Maybe it's the chance to win, maybe it's the endorsements, or maybe, just maybe, they realized that Indiana Fever fans are the backbone of something special, not the problem. It is, if you're good and you're playing well, it's great to be a Fever. If you're playing badly, it is the worst place you can be. And if you're a WNBA player, you've got to be able to handle that. The WNBA's landscape is shifting, and Indiana's at the center of it. So to the haters, keep talking. Because while you're busy tweeting, the Fever are busy winning. Think about it for a second. If the Indiana Fever's fan base was really that terrible, would top-tier players be lining up to sign contracts? Yeah, I didn't think so. It's almost like the narrative some people push doesn't match reality. Shocking, right? What these athletes see is something completely different from the tired, old headlines. And honestly, they're the ones who matter. With Natasha Howard, it was very clear that the potential for stardom, which she never had in her career no matter how good she's been, outweighed any potential downsides of playing for the Fever. And then for DeWanna Bonner, she had all those connections to Indiana. She had connections to Stephanie White. You might think you've got the full story about the Indiana Fever, but there's a comeback happening right now that nobody predicted. Remember when people acted like the Fever were some kind of basketball wasteland? What changed? Let's break down how Indiana flipped the script and silenced the haters. First, we got to talk about Caitlin Clark. She's not just a superstar, she's a walking headline, a sellout crowd magnet, and the kind of player who can single-handedly turn a struggling franchise into must-see TV. The energy she's brought to the Fever is unreal. The stands packed, the merch flying off shelves, suddenly Indiana looks like the place every player wants to be. And like I've said, there are so many pros to playing for the Indiana Fever. The pros being that you get more attention, you get more endorsements, you get a chance to win, you get fans on the road or at home. All these things come to you when you're playing for the Fever. But here's where it gets even juicier. It's not just about Clark. A culture was built thanks to the Fab Four of Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, and Lexi Hull. A culture of teamwork, camaraderie, and selflessness. That's why all-stars, veterans, and fan favorites are flocking to Indiana like it's the hottest new club. DeWanna Bonner, Sydney Colson, Natasha Howard, Sophie Cunningham, big names with big games. These aren't players looking for a paycheck, they're looking for a legacy. And they see it in Indiana regardless. So many players decided they were going to go to the Indiana Fever in the offseason, which was the death knell for a lot of those narratives. You know, they weren't traded. Cunningham was traded there, but Natasha Howard signed with the Indiana Fever. And I think more importantly, DeWanna Bonner signing with the Indiana Fever was representative of that. Sydney Colson as well, of course, but Bonner because she is in a relationship with Alyssa Thomas, and Alyssa Thomas had said what she said about fans after the playoff loss. It goes to show you that I think hopefully all that stuff has been put in the rear view. And of course, Bonner is a pro. Why? Because winning teams attract winners. When a franchise starts making noise, it comes with perks, national TV games, sold-out arenas, endorsement deals, you name it. Players aren't just thinking about their next layup. They're thinking about building their brand, securing their future, and maybe even adding a few extra commas to their bank accounts. No argument that the Fever are a great basketball destination, that Caitlin Clark is a great basketball player, that they have a great fan base. I guess that's ultimately what you're going to see, right? Because so many of those Fever fans, I've seen them, they're the ones watching Unrivaled, they're the ones watching women's college basketball, others too. Now, I know what some people are thinking, isn't this all just hype? Well, if it's hype, it's the most effective marketing campaign in sports history. Because the Fever went from nobody cares to everybody's watching in a matter of one season. And you better believe the experts are paying attention. Analysts who used to dismiss Indiana are now scrambling to figure out how they pulled this off. Then Sydney Colson, who was on the Aces, and so many of the Aces fans were always and Colson chooses the Indiana Fever. You know, it really does. I do think the BS is behind us, which is just great. But here's the secret. It's not just hype. It's a movement. The Fever aren't just a team anymore. They're a statement. A symbol of what happens when you combine raw talent, a passionate fan base, and a front office that actually knows what they're doing. This isn't about luck, it's about vision. These players aren't joining Indiana because of some fleeting social media buzz. They're here because they see the potential, they see the future, and most importantly, they see wins on the horizon. And then DeWanna Bonner says, yeah, you know, champion, right? Veteran, I choose to go there despite what was out there. Despite the fact that I played in Connecticut for so long, I want to go play for Indiana. And there are a lot of other players who have done that too. That's the part that's been so remarkable. So, if you're still clinging to the idea that nobody wants to play for the Fever, it's time to wake up. The narrative has changed. The league is changing. And Indiana Fever, they're leading the charge. Keep doubting. Keep talking. The Fever will be busy proving you wrong.